Happy Friday. Welcome to the briefing room. Coming to you from the Washington Bureau of ABC News, I'm John Santucci. Thank God it is Friday. We have had a long week. And starting today, President Trump on a 10-day vacation up in Bedminster, New Jersey. He's been spending the day on Long Island, New York at a very big fundraiser with some celebrity donors. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But we're going to start where the president left this morning. He left the White House South Lawn talking about the gun debate. What is going to happen in September when Mitch McConnell and the Senate come back into session and start talking about background checks. That is something we never thought we would see the Republican Senate take up, but after last week's shootings in El Paso, Texas, and in Ohio, that is where we are looking for our fall. Let's bring in ABC's Jordan Phelps over at the White House. She was monitoring what the president was saying over there this morning. And Jordan, really the first time that we heard the president, he tweeted this morning saying that it's something they're going to be looking at. But the fact that this is going to be the incoming agenda for the fall, quite surprising.
Yeah, John, it's interesting to see the president's sustained interest on this through the week. He started off the week tweeting that he felt that we needed to expand background checks, and that's exactly how he ended it as well. So very consistent message from the president there on this, and he says Mitch McConnell is working with him and is on board on this. It was interesting, John, because the president was asked a lot about previous attempts to make something happen big on guns. The president has said he's going to do something before, and then nothing has come of it. And the president said that he thinks now is a unique moment, that he believes he has more leverage than he has before, and that this is the time to make something happen. He closed by saying, you know, other presidents have tried to do something before, but you never had a President Trump.
Yeah, let's take a listen to the president earlier today, Jordan.
Meaningful things on background checks will take place, including red flags, including a lot of other very, very important items. And the Republicans are looking at it very seriously, and I really believe that the NRA, I've spoken to them numerous times, they're really good people. They're great patriots. They love our country. They love our country so much, and frankly, I really think they're going to get there also.
Jordan, he has said during that departure, the president said the NRA over the years has taken a very, very tough stance on everything, and I understand it's a slippery slope, but yet he did say that he has had what he qualified as very productive conversations with NRA Chief Wayne LaPierre.
John, the president suggesting that the distance between him and the NRA isn't as great as it's been portrayed. But, John, it's important to point out that historically the NRA has always opposed expanding background checks. But the president is in the position here to, you know, be the leader here and to provide cover for those Republicans underneath him. And the real question, John, is not whether the NRA supports this, but it's whether the president's base supports him. That's kind of how this president leads. We asked him if he feels he has his base on this. The president said he thinks his base makes decisions based on common sense, and they also watch what he's doing. So the president there very much suggesting that the base will get in line if he goes there.
And Jordan, as I mentioned, the president has been on Long Island, New York, where he's had two back-to-back fundraisers out in the Hamptons. He's now heading over to Bedminster, New Jersey to start a 10-day vacation. Interestingly, you know, this is sort of becoming a trend where we're seeing every August he is heading up there. Do we get a sense yet, Jordan? Is this going to be a working/tweeting vacation?
The White House always calls it a, quote, working vacation. I even had a White House official give me those quotation marks just yesterday when we talked about it. But, I mean, everybody deserves a vacation. Nobody's going to hold it against the president if he hits a few rounds of golf. Everybody deserves to enjoy in August. But no doubt the president says he'll continue to have meetings and calls, and he wants to work specifically on this potential gun control legislation, and so that things are ready to go come September.
Yeah, two people who deserve a vacation but are still working, you and I. Jordan Phelps over at the White House. Thank you, my friend. Let's stay on the topic of guns right now, because as we said, coming into the fall, this is going to be the hot topic that Congress is going to have to deal with. What will the president do? And we're seeing groups from around the country step up and raising this issue to the forefront. Let's bring one of those groups in right now. We're joined right now by Alana Miller. She's with Students Demand Action. And Alana, thanks so much for taking the time on this Friday afternoon for joining us. I do really appreciate it, because your group is interesting, and actually your personal story, Alana, is interesting because you just entered college. You're at Duke University now, as I understand it, but you actually organized for your local high school one of the first walkouts that we saw last year in response to the gun debate.
Yes, that's exactly right. So in my junior year of high school, I was on my high school's debate team, and we had a topic about universal background checks. And so I got really involved in the research behind gun violence prevention measures and kind of what we can do legislatively to solve this public health epidemic. And so then Parkland happened, and there was this huge response from students all over the country, and I knew right away I wanted to get involved. And so I hosted our walkout a week early because we were on spring break during the national ones, and had a much larger response than you ever would have expected coming out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas, in a very gun-friendly state. And we've been building off that momentum ever since.
Yeah, you mentioned you're from Texas, as you just said right there, definitely a gun-friendly state. Trump country, being Texas red for Republicans. What do you get the vibe, though, is sort of the attitude right now from people down in Texas? Again, it's a very large state, we get that, but considering what happened last Sunday in El Paso, have you been in touch with friends, family, perhaps former students from your high school in Southlake?
Yes. So I think the state of Texas right now is healing, but we're also reeling with anger, and we're ready together for a response. So with El Paso, Texas now has 4 of the 10 deadliest mass shootings in the country's modern history. So I think even though it is a very gun-friendly state, even though we haven't traditionally been open to gun violence prevention measures, I think now is going to be the time that we're going to see solutions to keep our communities.
And Alana, before I let you go, you know, as far as your group is concerned, like I said, it's Students Demand Action. I see behind you, you're standing by Everytown and Moms Demand Action, which are terrific organizations and have done a great job raising awareness. But specifically with an organization like yours, what is the day-to-day activities for a group like yours? What are you doing in schools around the country to raise awareness?
So we do a lot of things. We work legislatively. We hold in-district meetings with our Senate. We work educationally to study and learn about the solutions that we can be implementing, talking to our lawmakers about. But actually, really uniquely right now, we're in Des Moines, Iowa, where Everytown is holding the presidential forum where we're talking about gun violence prevention, which is huge considering so often gun violence has been something that candidates don't want to talk about. It's something they can't touch. And I think, especially with the midterms and with the momentum we've been seeing in the last year, gun violence prevention is a make or break when it comes to candidates getting elected to office. So we have this really unique moment right now where it's a really exciting day. We're going to be hearing from some really amazing candidates tomorrow, and we're expecting to hear aggressive stances on how we're going to solve this problem because it's way, way overdue.
Alana Miller with Students Demand Action. Thank you so much, Alana. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And staying on that topic, you know, Alana said it right there perfectly. This is becoming an issue all the 2020 candidates are going to be asked about. They've been asked about it in Iowa, where the state fair, the annual tradition there, is kicking off. We've seen candidates getting on board the soapbox, answering questions from voters, and that's where our team has been for the last couple of days. They have been speaking to voters all across Iowa about what they think about the gun debate, the issues, and the big list of candidates going for 2020. Take a listen to what our team heard on the ground.
I think Bernie's a really cool guy because he really cares about human life. So everywhere from gay marriage to even trans rights, that people deserve a voice, and they deserve someone to care for them, and they deserve someone to inform other people that their struggles.
Are you going to vote for him in 2020?
Probably.
Any reservations in your mind, or what is?
Nope, no reservations. I think he's doing a great job. I am most satisfied with the stance, the economy improving, the stance he's taking on gun control.
At this point, I'm really impressed with Elizabeth Warren, Harris, Buttigieg. Julian Castro was just fabulous. I think he knocked it out of the park. How do I think I will make my eventual decision? I will probably make it through facts and presentation, although I'm not sure that always does the Democrats well. I think that the reason the Republicans have been so successful is they have this emotional end that engendered a bunch of loyalty, the MAGA thing. And so wondering, I'm hoping that the Democrats can come up with some emotional way to connect with America to help bring more people on board.
There's too much left and too much right, not enough in the middle.
Let's bring in ABC's Mary Alice Parks. She's been on the ground for us, speaking to some of the voters there. Mary Alice, great to have you with us on a Friday out in Iowa. So, Mary, you and I were talking a little bit before this, and you were saying that voters are all over the map on so many issues, but in particular the candidates.
It's striking to me that this is totally up for grabs. Even the Democrats that came to see very specific candidates speak at the Iowa State Fair, that made an appointment viewing, tell us that they're not making up their mind for months. I was struck by how many reminded us that they made up their mind last time in November, December, and even though Iowa votes first, it doesn't vote until February.
Mary Alice, from your rough sampling running around the Iowa State Fair, I hope to God you paid homage to the butter cow. Otherwise, you can't come back. But
we're standing just outside.
I got to check. I got to check. You know, that's the rite of passage. I was on the road with you 4 years ago. But let me ask you this. As far as what you're hearing for candidates, are you getting a sense that there's certain voters are appealing to certain candidates based on issues, based on demographics with age?
Yeah.
I mean, where are you seeing it sort of break up?
Well, look, this was a really somber week, and in that way, the Iowa State Fair is providing a challenging backdrop because you have ice cream cones and turkey legs, but then the candidates talking about very serious issues. Almost every single one of the presidential candidates is commenting on whether or not they think the president of the United States is enabling white supremacists, and they're all getting these very stark and poignant questions about gun safety reforms. You know, gun safety has been a unifying issue for Democrats. Across the board, we've seen Democratic candidates call on Republicans to even bring up pieces of legislation for a vote that have already passed in the House controlled by Democrats. And one after one, these candidates are laying out very serious plans that would not only expand universal background checks, but would limit the importation of assault weapons or ban the sale of assault weapons or limit things like high-capacity magazines. I'm struck by how many moms are in these audiences at Democratic rallies, moms that say they are out protesting and voting on this issue alone.
Yeah, and it's funny, we caught up earlier with Julian Castro. I know ABC's Mary Bruce spoke to him about this very topic, about gun control, about background checks. Let's take a listen to Mary's exchange with the former congressman.
So on guns, you've been very critical of the president, but we are now hearing him say just now that he wants to see meaningful change on background checks. Do you give him credit for trying to push for action on this?
I will give the president credit when I actually see him sign legislation that enacts common sense gun safety legislation. The media, of all people, should have figured out what his playbook is by now. His playbook very clearly is that he says what he needs to say in the heat of the moment. You'll often notice, for instance, that he'll say, oh, we're going to have a plan on that in a few days, or we're going to do X, Y, or Z in a few days. What do I expect from the president? I expect that probably what's going to happen is that in a few days the president is going to drop this like he did last time. I am tired of a president that constantly just appeases the NRA.
Mary Alice, we'll obviously see where this goes. Mitch McConnell saying he's going to bring the Senate back for normal session in September, and they will deal with guns and background checks then. But on another topic, and I'm curious what you're hearing out there, we are still watching what is going on down at the southern border. Our colleague, as you know, Will Carr, spoke to the acting Secretary of Homeland Security. We're going to get to that in our next segment. But I'm curious, are you hearing any conversations from voters or candidates there in Iowa about the border debate?
Absolutely, but I'm mostly following Democratic candidates, and when the Democratic candidates talk about this issue, it just sounds so different than the president and his administration. They're calling for really a change in the immigration policies and using words like a humane immigration policy, wanting to keep families together, fighting back against any policy that would allow for the separation of families. We're seeing a lot of Democrats push back on the president's language. They accuse him of using racially divisive language, especially on issues dealing with the border. And I think it's important to remember a huge generational divide. You know, we saw there Julian Castro talking about plans, and all the candidates have a plan. Well, the young voters are pushing for those plans. They want to know, it's not enough if you're going to say this or that about the president. Right. What's your plan for dealing with the border? What's your plan for gun control? What's your plan for health care? Whereas I think some of the older voters are okay with an idea of returning to civility and looking for a candidate that in their view, acts like a statesman.
ABC's Mary Alice Parks, our deputy political director out in Iowa. Have fun out there, Mary Alice, and thank you. We are going to switch gears, jumping off that topic, actually, because down at the border earlier this week, our colleague, ABC's Will Carr, spoke with the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Kevin McAleenan, for an extensive interview about what things are currently happening down there. We toured some of the facilities, and we got to have a pretty in-depth conversation with him, and Will joins us now. Hey, Will.
I sat down for an exclusive interview with the acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. We talked about the recent ICE raids in Mississippi and what they're doing to combat overpopulation in immigrant detention centers here along the border.
Do you know how many children were separated from their families?
So ICE does a case-by-case assessment with everyone they arrest. They've already released about 40% of the people they arrested yesterday. And those parents that had dependent care issues were prioritized for release. They're placed back where they were apprehended so they can connect with their children.
So we want to show you a quick video.
My dad didn't do nothing. He's not a criminal.
What would you say to that little girl?
Yeah, obviously, the impact of enforcement of law can be devastating for families. And so what I would say is that ICE is going to go through a case-by-case process. If she needs that parent for care tonight, they're probably already released. But it is really a challenging situation. We've got very vulnerable laws that invite families and kids to make this dangerous journey right now. The kids are put at risk from the beginning of the cycle through their arrival in the U.S.
And what happens to the kids when the parents are taken into custody?
So obviously it depends on the individual situation. As I already noted, from the arrest yesterday, about 40% have already been released that had either already been encountered, that didn't have a criminal record, or weren't a mandatory detention requirement under federal law. And of course, if they have a dependent care issue, that's prioritized for release.
I also asked him about decriminalizing border crossings. He tells me that would be counterproductive and would invite even more people across the border during a humanitarian crisis.
Will Carr, thank you very much. And you can see more of Will's interview and read more about it right now up online at abcnews.com. But let's talk about those raids. 600 plus gathered, about 300 approximately released at this point. I want to bring in ABC's John Cohen. He's a former undersecretary of the Department of Homeland Security. So, John, you know, these raids, they happen. We know that there was a plan several months ago for a multi-city raid to happen. It didn't. This was a raid from just after the weekend, 6 cities from across the U.S. Are these actually effective?
The short answer is they're not effective at deterring illegal immigration because the people who are coming to this country are primarily coming because they're fleeing violence and poverty, and they're looking for economic opportunity. So, you know, the fact that we are targeting workplaces and by the very nature of these raids, targeting the lowest risk individuals that are here. I mean, let's just be really clear. The people who are working in this plant, for the most part, none of them are criminals. They've been here for long periods of time. They work, they pay taxes, they're a part of our community, they contribute to the economy. And as a law enforcement and homeland security professional, it's perplexing to me that with everything going on in the country today, all of these higher risk threats, we're going to divert 600 agents and have them target this population of people. And if you want to deter people hiring people who may be undocumented, then you go after the employers. You don't go after the workers.
But I guess that's really the question, right? Because if these individuals are paying taxes, they are contributing. In most cases, I understand it, these are individuals that are overstaying a visa, but that's not actually a crime, is it, John?
No, being in this country in an undocumented status is not a criminal offense. It is a civil issue. Crossing the border illegally the first time is a misdemeanor. Crossing the border illegally or not at a checkpoint and without proper documentation multiple times or after you've been deported can be a felony. But simply being here in an undocumented status is not a crime. And quite frankly, I would suspect, if statistics are any indicator, that a large number of the people that were swept up in this raid had come here legally initially.
And John, lastly, before I let you go in quickly, we saw that ICE is actually looking for more facilities as they are dealing with the border crisis. Just give us your check, John. I mean, you know this. You know how bad the situation is or is not. What do you make of it at the moment? Is it just getting worse?
Well, during the Obama and Bush administrations, the priorities were targeting those here in an undocumented status who were a risk to public safety or national security. People need to really understand that for every agent that's working on a workplace raid going after a low-risk individual, that agent is not working on targeting gangs, terrorists, stopping technologies from going to North Korea and Iran that can be used for weapons, not dealing with cyber attacks, not stopping mass shootings. So it's all a question of what's more important to you. Is it more important to you to keep our communities safe? Or is it more important to you to make a political statement about that you're tough on immigration?
Tough story. ABC's John Cohen. Thank you, John. I appreciate you joining us. We're going to switch gears. What do you think? Lighter note for a Friday? It's been a long week. So let's go back out to Iowa. So Iowa State Fair, this is a thing that happens. Some of us have done this all the time. Some of us actually work when we cover the Iowa State Fair. Adam Kelsey, what are you doing right now?
John, I am on the Sky Glider here at the State Fair. We just hopped on. This is one of 2 Sky Glider chairlifts here at the fair. We are getting an unbelievable view right now of the entire Midway. You guys may be able to see right behind me downtown Des Moines, the Iowa State Capitol, some of the buildings down there as well. And what perfect timing. We're slowing down right here so I can tell you about some of the other fun we've been having. Well, my colleagues have been chasing around presidential candidates, trying to get the lay of the land, talking to voters about who they would like to caucus for. I've been eating fried food. I've been eating fried candy bars. I had a bacon-wrapped rib, milkshake, lemonade creamsicle. We're having a ball. I might never come home, John.
You know, Adam, let me tell you something, okay? I kind of did that job 4 years ago. You know, ran around with some guy named Donald Trump. I didn't really have time. So right. What have you had so far? Because your Twitter feed is kind of making me jealous, kind of sick, a little bit of both. What have you eaten out there? What is this? Fried something?
It has been one never-ending meal. I started
poutine.
right off the bat
Adam.
with
What's
some.
The list?
Yeah. Pork belly poutine. The pork belly was fried. I had some fried garlic cheese curds at 9 a.m. yesterday. Everybody was smelling my breath the rest of the day. I think there was a root beer flown in there at one point. And get this, they also have a few vegetarian stands. You can get a vegetarian corn dog made with a soy hot dog. You can get a veggie combo as well. Let's just say, not for me. I have not had any of those.
Did you have any vegetables? It's Iowa. They have corn there, Adam.
I had a little bit of salad away from the fair last night. We did sample some corn as well. And I have to say, I think my mom is watching. She was very concerned about me. I've been drinking lots of water. It's very hot out, Mom. I'm okay. And I promise when I get home, I will go back on a diet.
Mrs. Kelsey, I join your concern. I explained to Adam that when I did the campaign, I became friends with Banana Republic, getting an upgraded size in jeans every couple of weeks. You have a year and a half to go. Pace yourself.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
You said that right. All right, Adam Kelsey, have fun. Don't eat too much. God almighty, what are they doing? I think I did the job incorrectly 4 years ago. That's where we're going to leave this Friday. For Adam Kelsey's stomach, I'm John Santucci. Make sure to download the ABC News app for any news anytime. You are watching ABC News.